Hi, welcome to Interviewing Basics. My name is Jessica Moreno, and I am a staffing specialist in the Office of Human Resources. I have been in the Office of Human Resources with UMB for the better part of 10 years and have a total of 12 years of experience in human resources and staffing and recruitment. Today, we are going to talk about interviewing preparation. What can you do to get yourself ready for meeting with a new prospective hiring manager? What types of interviews might you run into, and how can you practice for those? How can you prepare for different interview questions that you might run into? And what are things you should remember on the day of the interview and the day after the interview? Before your interview even begins, you should start a self-assessment. Document your strengths and your weaknesses. Better yet, document areas of development. What are areas that you think that you can become stronger in, and ways that this position can help you in that development? Match your skills and abilities to the job criteria. And if they don't match 100%, think of ways that they can relate or translate. How interested are you in this position? Hopefully you're extremely interested and you know that there is a strong fit that exists. And if there is, you're ready to move forward. One of the things that you should do after immediately applying to a job is print out a copy of the job posting. You can use this later to familiarize yourself with that job before going into the interview. You're going to acquaint yourself with the job summary, specifically, what is this job? What area of the organization is this job going to be reporting to? And what skills are needed? Get a better idea of what the essential functions are. And again, this is a good time to start thinking about your self-assessment that you just did. And what are skills that match up with those skills that are needed? Or what are skills that you have that might translate into skills that might be needed by this position? Go through your minimum requirements again and confirm that you match up with the minimum requirements needed for the position. And you can also review the salary information if available. If the salary that's listed is too low for what you're looking for, this is a good time to go ahead and step back and decide if you really want to move forward. With that job summary, you should ideally have a little bit of information about the institution or organization that you're applying to. If there's not enough there, I strongly recommend that you conduct your research. Different organizations like UMB have a strong history, a structure, a mission and vision, core values, and different locations that they may have. For example, UMB is located in Baltimore City, but we also have a sister institution in Shady Grove. A great way to practice for an interview is by doing a mock interview. A mock interview is an emulation of an interview used for training purposes. The interview tries to resemble a real interview as closely as possible and provides experience for the candidate. During the mock interview, you should identify a friend, a relative, classmate, or teacher that you can have ask you questions and provide you with honest, direct feedback. You want this individual to let you know if your answers are thorough enough and clear enough, and they understand how you're connecting your skills with the job that you're applying to. I also recommend recording yourself when you're practicing. This gives you an opportunity to look at your body language, specifically your posture and your facial expressions, and listen to your voice. When you're getting nervous, is the pitch of your voice going a little too high or a little too low? And this can give you an opportunity to calm down and think of ways to keep yourself calm during the actual interview. It's not unusual to come out of an interview thinking about the mistakes that you've made. And there are several common types of mistakes that can occur, but these are ones that you want to avoid. Improperly dressing or being unprofessional, bad-mouthing previous employers, not turning off your electronic devices, whether it's your Apple Watch or your phone, not talking enough. Right here, a good rule of thumb is to talk 80% of the time. your lack of preparedness or unfamiliar with the company. This is a good example of what we referred to earlier when we talked about preparing for your interview and doing a read-up on the institution or organization that you've applied to. Oftentimes, you'll see individuals who've applied to University of Maryland, Baltimore, and confuse our university with University of Maryland, Baltimore County. While we all know that a common mistake might be showing up to an interview late, oftentimes people don't realize that you can be too early to an interview. Have you ever had to drive more than an hour to go to an interview? I think we all have. And when that happens, you may want to get there 10 to 15 minutes early for your interview. But sometimes traffic is not as heavy as we think it's going to be, and we may arrive somewhere between 30 to 40 minutes beforehand. If that occurs, you should hang out in your car or find a coffee shop somewhere where you can continue to look through that job posting you printed out and prepare yourself some more, and then try to get there about 10 to 15 minutes before your interview starts. Some of the different types of interviews you may encounter during your job search are informational interviews. Those might just be in moments where you get to do a quick phone screen with the hiring manager or the recruiter, where they inform you of what the job is and who you're going to be meeting with next. One of the most common types of interviews that you'll engage in is a one-on-one interview. That'll typically be with whoever your direct supervisor is going to be. Group and panel interviews are often occur during your second round of interviews. At that point, you maybe meet with whoever your supervisor directly reports to, as well as other members of the team. Virtual interviews have become more popular since 2020, when we all had to move to a more virtual experience in our lives. The partner technique is a good technique to remember when having an engagement during an interview. You want to remain poised. You want to build a rapport with whoever it is you're meeting with. You want to make sure that your appearance is professional. You want to make sure that all of your answers are thorough. You want to be aware of your surroundings, and you want to make sure that you're expressing your interest in the position and reflecting appropriately on the experiences that you've had in prior positions. When going to an interview, there are certain questions that will always come up. These common interview questions are typically, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What is your biggest weakness? What is your biggest strength? My advice to you, if you are asked what your biggest weakness is turn it around. Don't make it about a weakness. Make it about an area that you are currently trying to improve or develop. Something that you think that this job will help you improve and develop. What is one of the most important accomplishments in your career? And what was the reason for leaving your last position? That might be a difficult question to answer, but be honest. The other type of commonly used questions in interviews are behavioral-based questions. These are questions that are focusing on your motivations, your technical skills, and your work relationships. Some of the different types of behavioral interview questions that you may run into will usually start off with, tell me about a time when, or think of a recent example of when you describe a difficult project where you ... During your mock interview, this is a good time to also practice documenting how you tell those stories when asked a behavioral interview question. What was the situation that you were in? What was the task that you had been requested to complete? What action did you take to complete that task? And what was the result? The STAR technique. As I mentioned before, it's important to be prepared for difficult questions. For example, why did you leave your past position? Perhaps you were involuntarily separated. Did you have a long break in your employment? And if so, what was the purpose of that? If you don't have any employment history, or all of the work you've done has been part of your education. Some interviewing best practices, and this ties back to those questions that might be difficult. Keep your integrity and always tell the truth. You want to stay focused and stay positive. Again, practice, practice, practice. Go back and do mock interviews and do it with multiple people if you need to. Ensure that you have a list of professional references and make sure that their information is up to date. When providing a list of professional references, it's extremely important that at least one of those individuals on that sheet was a former supervisor. Again, we want to remember that we need to come in proper attire and look professional, and it's important to stay professional throughout the process. When we're interviewing, it's easy to get off topic and start talking about personal lives. The interview should really be about your professional experience. Hopefully, if you get the job, after that is when you can start to learn more about your coworkers on a personal level. What are some questions that you might have about the organization that you can be prepared with? Some good questions to think about asking at the end of the interview are, what are the primary challenges associated with this position? What are your long-term expectations of this person and short-term expectations? An important question to ask, especially if the position has listed that it's contractual or grant funded, is how is this position funded and for how long? What are the next steps in the interviewing process? So you've gotten to the day of the interview. As we've discussed, you want to make sure that you're dressed professionally. You want to make sure that you arrive only about 10 to 15 minutes before your actual interview time. It's important that you walk in with confidence and use manners. You never know who you're going to run into, and so it's important to be kind to every person that you engage with. You want to make sure that when you go in, you're thanking your interviewers, and you want to make sure you leave thanking your interviewers as well. If possible, get business cards for everybody, or at the bare minimum, at least the business card of the person that you've been in most direct contact with. And once the day is over, make sure that you follow up with that information and thank everyone you interviewed with. If you were unable to get everybody's information and just have the information of the one person who's been contacting you, send them an email and tell them to thank everybody that was a part of the panel as well. At this point, do you have any questions about this? Feel free to reach out to us and let us know if you do. Thank you so much, and good luck on your interviews.